Oh, it's lunchtime. It's 12:30. It's a Monday, and I am super excited today because we're going to be talking about AI. So, are you using AI in your business? ChatGPT. Uh, there's loads of others, and I can't name them all. But luckily, I've got an amazing person who's going to come in and share all of this. We have got Jamie Bykov-Brett. Hello, Jamie. How are you?
I'm great, thank you very much. How are you, Ashley?
Well, you can see I'm buzzing.
Yeah.
I love all this new tech, right? Because I am so old. There was no computers at my school when I was at
Mhm.
school, and so in the last 20 odd years, I've really gotten into all this tech stuff, and now AI. Oh my goodness, it's just incredible. So before we go any further, tell everybody who you are, what you do, please, Jamie.
Sure. So essentially, I am an AI consultant. I support organizations with implementing AI and automation. Automation often is a piece of the puzzle that people don't often talk about, but equally it's valuable. And help at all sorts of different levels. Initially, this started by implementing it within my own business. Then I was like, actually, I can help other small, medium enterprises to be able to do this. Then that turned into us going, well, actually, there's a training element here. And now a lot of what I'm delivering is C-suite strategy to go, well, this will be a technology that changes your business more in the next 3 years than the internet did in the last 20. You're probably going to want to be a step ahead of the curve on it. So essentially helping people understand that perspective and get on board.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Ahead of the curve. You just said it taken us 20 years to get into the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But so where do you see AI then?
AI, I think, has such a moment in this point in time because the capabilities of it are essentially the way that we worked in an industrial world is we filled the gaps in machine capability. Human beings filled the gap in machine capability. And every tool, every application, digital, analog, whatever, was required that human element in order to operate it. The thing is with AI and automation is it erodes the need for human beings to operate those pieces of technology. So AI is in some ways a fantastic technology for the same reason that it's a very scary technology, is that it is the first thing that is able to make decisions without a human needing to be able to do it. If I give the example of a spade, right? In order to operate a spade, you have to operate that spade. But if the spade operates itself, you have a completely different kind of working. And that's where we kind of see the shift from an industrial economy to a digital economy, is in this sense of the technology better, machines better than people do. So that changes the whole game, really.
And so I've just got this image in my head. It's funny when you're talking to someone how things pop into your head. Before I do that, I just want to say hello to Miho. He's back again. And if you've got any questions on AI, please drop them in the chat. And Jamie is sure to answer them. So the first thing we think of when we think of AI is the film The Terminator, right? And sort of like, so I want to know, is that ever going to happen? But the other thing is, like literally just thinking of what you were saying then about the spade. I'm thinking about the mop. And I'm now thinking about the mop and cleaning, and I'm thinking about Fantasia. Now, that was the first full-length feature cartoon that Disney made, and there's a bit in there that Mickey Mouse is doing some magic to get it to clean the floor, and that is that early AI? Do you reckon?
I mean, any significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So when we're looking at what we can do within these spaces, quite often people go to me, can I get an AI to do this? Can I get an AI to do that? I'm like, whoa, take a step back. What do you actually want it to be able to do? Because the capabilities are always going to grow. We always have to remember the worst that this technology is ever going to be is
Today.
today. The advancements that we're seeing are happening so quickly, and we are also seeing a technology that has emergent properties, which is something that we don't normally see in other technologies. So a really good example of this will be, we didn't specifically design AI to be able to be a translation tool. That is an emergent property that came out of essentially training it on all of this information, and generative AI was able to go, well, with basically the internet as a resource, we are able to translate, and it was never trained on that. We're seeing it with video at the moment, that being able to annotate a video and go, actually, I want the AI to be able to do X, Y, and Z based on a drawing I've put on it. And it understanding that was something that was never built into it. It was something that it's learned. And that's what makes it a very different kind of technology to anything else we've experienced.
No, I love that. I love that. Right. So I've just dashed out to my garage, right?
Mhm.
I got a couple of things here. This is a screwdriver. This is a manual
Mhm.
screwdriver, and the thing is, right? I talk to people and they go, "Oh, you shouldn't be using AI because it's it's going to take people's jobs and
Mhm.
stuff like that." And I'm sort of like, it is just a tool. Because the other thing I've got in my garage
Mhm.
is one of these. Now, any carpenter worth his salt is going to use a power drill, not a screwdriver. So is that a fair analogy for people sort of like a little bit slow to take up AI?
Yeah, I think, it is a very different kind of tool, and I understand people's concerns. And one of the aspects of our technological adoption should always be understanding why people have resistance to it. This is when we're looking at what AI does, is it essentially it does have the capacity to replace human beings in the traditional workforce in many ways. Goldman Sachs reckon 300 million jobs displaced by AI and automation by 2030. We because essentially, if you think about how we've worked up until this point, is we treated people like machines. We educated them like they were machines. They went to school, and the whole point was you need to retain information, recite information, regurgitate information. Now, essentially, that creating people like machines meant that they were doing that, filling that machine capability within the workplace. But as I said, we're now in a situation where machines machine better than people do. So we kind of have to go people need to people better than machines. And that means that actually the most valuable skills to people in this digital economy are things that are hard for machines to be able to replicate. So curiosity, creativity, communication, connectivity, and critical thinking. And essentially, one of the reasons that it has a comparable to your screwdriver and your drill, but also has a step away from it as well, as being able to go, well, what do we want human beings to do if we're not getting them to do the machine work? What is It's a real opportunity to reinvent what it means to be human in a digital age, and go, the AI can take care of the menial. How can we make sure that people can focus on the meaningful?
No, that's incredible, and it's just getting your head around that. But the benefits of using just something simple like ChatGPT, I know it's not simple,
Mhm.
but that's most people's starter, isn't it?
Mhm. Sure. I mean, from a generative AI perspective, the whole point of that technology is that its interface is designed to be intuitive. If you can send an email, you can use generative AI. And I
Mm.
think that's one of the scary things that people come up with immediately is they go, new piece of technology, how's that going to work? How am I going to honestly write to ChatGPT like you're sending an email to somebody that you want to do a task and you are 90% of the way there? And it still involves a lot of critical thinking and human oversight as well. I always say AI gets you 80% of the way there really quickly, but the last 20% is always human oversight. And we should always be thinking about, checking over that work, making sure that we are happy with it, because all that AI is doing is going, based on that input, I'm giving you a statistically probable output. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. It just means it's statistically probable. So
Mm.
if you want to be able to tailor it to what you want to do, you always need that human oversight part of the second part.
Okay, so someone's listening to this and they're going, "Oh, I'm going to give it a go today." What's the
Mhm.
first thing they should be doing? Where should they go first?
Give yourself time to play. Give yourself time to be able to make mistakes. The only way you're going to learn this technology is by experimenting, and setting aside a couple of hours every week to be able to go, I'm going to learn how this works. And in the same way that these digital skills are going to be so essential over the next few years, well, and moving forward beyond that, it would kind of be like going, probably when computers were more coming into the workforce, and we're talking 20 years ago, some people would be like, "Oh, I'm not an email guy. I'm not an internet guy." And then realistically, you wouldn't be able to go to a job interview at the moment and be like, "I don't do emails. It's not my thing. I'm a people person." You kind of need to be able to go into the workplace and be able to go, "Yeah, I've got the fundamental skills that I need to do it." And there's kind of a running dark joke in the communities that I'm a part of, which is your job won't be taken by AI, but it will be taken by someone who knows how to utilize it. And I
Yeah.
feel that that's very true for anyone who's looking to learn this at the moment, to understand that this isn't just a nice to have. This is going to be an essential skill.
Yeah, it's an essential skill such as sending an email.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or being able to pick up the phone or whatever else
Open a Word
we do.
document.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so there's Microsoft have got Copilot,
Mhm,
Google have got Gemini, and then there's
mhm.
also ChatGPT. Are those the three main ones?
Yeah, I think so. The reason those would be the three main ones would be mainly because if you're an organization, you probably already have a license with one of those.
Yeah.
Copilot is a bit of a fork of ChatGPT anyway. You know, they're based on the same concept, same principles, same models. Um, you've got Gemini is a Google product. Anthropic does Claude, which is a great model, does really good personalized speaking. You've got Grok, which is trained on Twitter data, but there DeepSeek, that is a Chinese model that was developed basically off the back of some of these other models as well, but it's done for cheaper and for on a lot lower power. So there is so many models out there, and what you're going to discover as you start to play with these is some of these models are better than at some tasks than other things. So yeah, they're always developing, and the capabilities of them are growing exponentially. We've just seen ChatGPT release agents, which essentially are no longer just language models that you can talk to and get results from, but can actually do things like control your browser, go on to different things, research in a lot more detail, which starts to change the game a little bit more.
Yeah, and that was one of my questions for a little bit lower down the
Mhm.
list. We got LinkedIn user. Unfortunately, we can't see your name, but they're saying here, I think it's important to be aware of the AI risks towards vulnerable groups in society, like children, and obviously giving us something to read. What's your thoughts on that, please?
Totally. Like we are working with a technology that we don't help young people make sense of. And actually, it probably surprised people, but my first job was a youth worker. Actually, the whole reason that I got into AI and automation was because I was helping marginalized young people to try and get into the STEM sector. So science, technology, engineering, and maths. And how do we bridge the gap between a sector that is inherently very academic, very elitist, but a group with a huge amount of talent, but maybe doesn't go through traditional pathways? And I think there are incredible harms that can come with technologies where we don't think about the unintended consequences. Actually, when I did a TEDx talk like 10 years ago now, my whole thing was around going, you have to reinvent what it's like to participate in a digital world. And we have to change our education system for that as well.
Mm.
You know, you have to prepare people for the world you're going into. And at the moment, we give people this industrialized education with industrialized values that's like, you know, you'll get to where you want with hard work, you know, it knows the grindstone and all that kind of stuff. And that's simply not true for young people today, if doubt in doubt it ever was. And those industrialized values don't help when people are in a different reality, because a lot of young people have gone through that education system now, and the social contract that was there has been broken. And there are harms with any of these technologies, particularly when there is a lack of understanding around them. And you have teachers who don't understand this technology through no fault of their own, and they're trying to help young people navigate something where it can distort reality and it can change people's way of seeing the world. So we do need to support people to understand those risks and minimize them as much as we can.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening, but they ask ChatGPT, "Can you do this for me, please?" and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Is that necessary?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of what we're trying to do is go that the interface is intuitive. So whatever you want to be able to ask, it kind of comes up with the what. The real value in it, like the digital economy, is yes, you can utilize AI to find out the what really quickly, but what's the human aspect of that is what now and why.
Mm.
And this is where we're starting to see a change in how we need to educate people, going back to the previous question, because essentially there's a really good example of this Alpha School in the States. It's in Texas, which probably surprises a lot of people, but it's the school in America that has the top 2% of educational outcomes in the country. They utilize AI as a tutor for 2 hours a day teaching the core curriculum. Everything else they teach is human-centric skills, and it's about learning how to do presentations, it's about learning how to cook, it's about learning how to talk to people, all of that kind of stuff. They have the best educational outcomes in the country, and essentially AI is that tool that can give you that. Here's the curriculum, here's the information that you need, it's on demand, it's accessible, any device, anytime, anywhere, entirely tailored to what you want to know. But that's not the biggest value. The biggest value is in knowing what to do next, and that's where I think a lot of people struggle.
Yeah, because if we use it regularly, we get into it and we start understanding it and all those sorts of things. Is there an easy way to prompt? Because everyone's sort of like, oh, what's the best prompt? Is there an easy way to prompt?
I think it's always interesting, and it happens when I talk to anyone about technology, is they always think about the technology before they think about actually what they want to be able to do. Utilizing AI on a rubbish process doesn't make it a good process. Utilizing automation on something that's redundant doesn't all of a sudden make it valuable. And sometimes I think people need to take a couple of steps back from the technology and go, actually, this is what I'm looking to achieve, and that will help you with writing the prompt. But what happens generally is people go into it and go, almost like face to the keyboard, I need it to be able to do this, and they might not give it enough information, they might not give it enough context. And it goes back to our email example. If you were sending an email to an intern, you would attach maybe some context around what you want them to do, who they might need to contact, the kind of sources that they're looking for, all of that kind of stuff, and that would help that intern to be able to achieve the result. So I would go, you need to treat AI in a very similar kind of way. The more information that you give and the more context you give and the more specificity you give, the likelihood of you getting a better outcome is much more stronger. When I'm talking to businesses, there's always 3 questions that I ask people. Is it repetitive? Does it involve a lot of text? Could you teach an intern to do it? And if the answer is yes to any of those, then that is a task that is primed for AI and automation.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got AI. We're using AI. And then we've got custom GPTs. What on earth are they?
Yeah, so custom GPTs are essentially pre-prompted agents, assistants, I should say, rather than agents. So essentially, you've written a prompt, it sits in the background of that, and that goes into, once again, our repetitive tasks. So, for example, I have a really basic assistant, but I probably use it about 10 times a day. And all it does is it writes meta descriptions. Now, a meta description is normally summarizing a page in 2 sentences. And all I do is I can go, great, here's the content of the page, write the meta description. Now that has to be done so frequently when you're developing online products and on the web and you're trying to explain it. And all I've got is a little assistant there that goes, I need you to write this into a meta description. I need it to be this many characters long. Here's the text. I'm going to give you the text. I would like you to give me a 2-line output that has that search engine optimization as part of it. So that assistant just kind of sits in the background, and it's a list of those repetitive tasks that we're doing through that pre-programmed prompt.
Perfect. So we need to start looking at at custom GPTs and do that. Right. So then I opened up my chat GPT. I think it was this weekend or yesterday or whenever it was, and it came out. It goes, new agents. I'm like, oh, I've been reading about this. How exciting! And then it said this great big warning and stuff like that. I think, oh, maybe I shouldn't be using it, because what it's now doing is it's pretending to be me and going around the internet. So can you explain that for my simple brain, please?
Sure. So essentially, let's kind of go through some definitions here, and they are misused all of the time, and they are used interchangeably, and I completely understand people not understanding them. Even Copilot, I think, mislabels the way that they talk about AI. So you've got your general AI, which is normally an assistant. You interact with it in that assistive process. An agent is essentially an AI that is able to figure out how to be able to do a task outside of just the conversation window that you're working in. So if I was to give an example, I could go, I would like you to book a flight for me for going to Paris on these dates at this time, around about this budget, leaving from airports in this area. And I could go to my AI and go, my agent, and go, I'd like you to be able to do that. And what it would do is go, well, I know how to figure out that problem. I can access all of these, I can go on to Skyscanner, I can look at all the flights, I can pick the ones that are there. Now, and then it could go all the way through to being able to book that flight, hypothetically speaking. And this is early day technology as well. It will take time to be able to get to there. But obviously, one of the concerns and warnings that are behind that is, say you're booking that flight, you tick a little terms and conditions button to say, I've read these terms, I understand what I'm doing, I understand that this flight might not be refundable and everything like that. And that's the human part of the process. That's what you're agreeing to. And there is obviously a big discussion there about whether an agent should be able to represent you on that behalf to be able to tick that bit. Because if you come back to those people and go, the agent booked the wrong flight, give me a refund, they go, no, because you said that you've booked this, you've booked on your behalf. So you need to be aware of that. And this is where we're starting to look at how you can never hold an AI accountable. Okay. You can only ever hold a human being accountable. An AI is a tool. It would be like holding your spade accountable for digging a bad hole. Like, no, there's that human accountability at the end of it. And that's where this agent bit kind of blurs those lines and erodes the boundaries between our digital and our physical world. So essentially, that's why there's a risk attached to it as well. So we have to be very mindful of how we're using this technology.
Yeah. Okay. And so automation, because that's the holy grail for running a business, isn't it? I've got all these emails coming in, I've got all these DMs coming in, and I've got to juggle them and stuff like that. Will AI be able to help me with all of that?
Yeah. So once again, if we go back to our terms, so we've got automation, assistance, and agents, and they're all kind of variations of it. Now, an automation doesn't necessarily have to involve AI to be able to do it. An automation is essentially a process that is repetitive and it's done digitally. So, for example, it could be that your agent means that every time somebody subscribes to your email list, they get added to a spreadsheet, and on that spreadsheet, it reminds you at the 3-month mark to go and send them an email to follow up with them. That it doesn't have to involve AI to be able to do it, but it can do. Because what we could do is go, well, actually, based on them subscribing, I want you to use an AI to scrape their website, give me a paragraph about what they're doing, and add that to another cell in the spreadsheet as well. And from a context of a small business, I mean, these are old stats now, but they still think they have the impact. I automate about 24 processes in my business. On average, that completes about 1,600 tasks for me every month. If each one of those tasks would have taken me 5 minutes, it's 2.5 work weeks that I save every month through automation.
Wow.
So it allows you to basically augment your own capabilities.
Yeah. A bit like using one of these to put decking screws in.
Exactly like that. And this is where sometimes people, when you're looking at AI, there's kind of 3 different ways that you could look at it. You could go, this is something that is replacing a human being, which is often how people do it. They go, oh, I can see a human being doing that at the moment. I could get an AI to do that, which that's low hanging fruit. That's a bit boring. You've got slide rules, which are augmentation. How can I magnify my own capabilities to be able to do more? And then you have this kind of overarching bit, which is, what can AI do that a human being could never do? And I think those are your golden tickets.
Yeah, no, I love that. Right. So we've chatted about ChatGPT and all the other large language models, but what other AI is out there that we could be using in our business?
Sure. So depending on what the business is and depending on what you do, that spans quite a lot. But even in this call at the moment, I've got AI on my eyes. Okay. My eyes are augmented by an AI at the moment that tries to make sure that I'm making more eye contact with the camera. So, essentially really good as a facilitator to be able to augment what's going on, because I can start to go, well, I don't have to focus so much about looking at the camera. I can still look at my slide notes and it's going to try and keep my focus in those kind of spaces.
Wow.
One really good example of being able to do that. If you've got a power enough graphics card, this is free technology. This is from NVIDIA. It's NVIDIA broadcast. So essentially, we can start to look at it from being able to transcribe information. We can start to look at it being able to go, realistically, the tasks are endless and the capabilities are only going to grow. So generative AI is one part of a puzzle. That's kind of what we're mainly talking about at the moment, is the ability of a machine to be able to generate an outcome. But there are so many different types of AI when it comes to data and analytics and our capabilities. It really is a case of a growing list of, can we do it? Well, we could probably get an AI to do it.
Yeah, and you've been in this space such a long time. If I went back to the industrial age and talked to some of the farm workers when the tractors came along, they'd be saying, "Oh, I'm not going to have a job," but then they ended up being tractor repairers and manufacturers of tractor parts and all of the sales people for the tractors and all that sort of thing. So the jobs change. What do you think is going to happen with AI then?
So if history always repeats itself, and I like your example with the tractor. Okay, so let's go from the agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution. In the agricultural world, 80% of people had farm related roles. within the space of 50 years that had gone down to 20 years. Now it's, less than 5%. And that transition has to also shape how we do education and the economy. So we can't just have an agricultural economy and an industrial workforce, because they don't work together. And this is one of the concerns that I have, is going, well, at the moment, we're trying to implement this very powerful technology, lots of capability, will change the way of work, will in many ways replace some aspects of human labor required in a traditional workforce. But our economy hasn't kept up with that. And our economy is still very much based on these industrialized values of the human labor that's doing that work. And what we're seeing from like an economic point of view is roles that were traditionally middle paid roles are the ones that are easiest to use AI and automation on. So your clerical work, anything that sits in front of a computer, we've got so much data on that, because if you're acting in that digital world, well, we can teach an AI to be able to do that. We can train it on every video of every technology. It's going to be able to do things that you can't, which is where I think in a digital economy, we have to start going, well, what do we want human beings to do within that space? And my suggestion is, I think the care economy is really important. What we want people doing are things around those human-centric bits, creating that connection, supporting people, being able to compensate things that were potentially unpaid in our industrial workforce, but still has a huge amount of economic value. So if we look at unpaid labor, particularly from women when it comes to caring responsibilities, looking after old elderly parents and stuff like that, that contributes trillions and trillions of pounds into our economy every single year, but it's uncompensated. And I would go, actually, that's a really important part of our digital part. If we're going to reinvent what it means to be human in this digital world, we should start with the things that we want human beings doing. Because we don't want an AI to be raising our kids. We might already be in a situation where putting it there. People sit their kids in front of a television. The screen time that is there is ever growing, because our constant our capability of having to do more and more work and to bring home money that's worth less to us. But I think that's where I would go, well, we need to shift that. We need to shift an entire perspective and start to see things that we weren't compensating for and look at how we compensate them within our world.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, that half hour has just flown by. You've been absolutely amazing. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you wanna shout about, and then we'll tell everybody about your lovely community?
No, I think it's obviously been very comprehensive, and I hope that everybody takes from this that there is a human element to everything that we're talking about here. Don't look at the technology in isolation. The unintended consequences are important, but they only happen when we start to think about it. I'm sure when Facebook came about, they didn't think that a social media platform would erode the ability of democracies to function. It's an unintended consequence, but it's still a consequence. And I think that if people realize that you don't have to be an AI expert to have something to contribute to this conversation, whatever you bring to the table is incredibly valuable to this further conversation, because this technology does need to be cultivated by all of us. AI is just a mirror of us. We train it on our data. It shows that reflection back. It shows us in that information. So any biases that we have, any human faults that we find are not just present within that data set, but they can be magnified by it, particularly when it comes to social norms and values. So I think it's a really important aspect to go, I have something to bring to this conversation. I don't have to be an AI expert, but I am an expert in something, even if that's just the world that I live in and my subjective experiences. So if there's one thing to take away from that, it's come as you are, bring something to the conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today. Before we say goodbye, I'm just going to bring up my guest next week, Mags Bradshaw. She's got something very exciting to share with us. She knows all about marketing, so we'll be having a chat with her. Very human, she is. So we're having a chat with her. Jamie, you've got a little community that we can join that will help us with all of this that you've been putting together for quite a while, yeah?
Yes, so I have the Metropolitan. It's a free community. It has AI assistance, it has tutorial guides, it has free courses. The whole point of it is, if AI isn't helping those furthest away from opportunity, then what's the point? And I want to be able to make sure that as many people as possible can contribute in this conversation. So essentially, it's going to help you with some of those foundational concepts, those foundational skills. So it's just metropolitan.xyz. Feel free to join up, feel free to experiment, and hopefully gain something from the conversation.
You're an absolute star. Thank you for coming on to my show today. Thank you to everybody for all their comments. And I will be back next week with a Mags. Jamie, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to my show this week. I want to bring to you people that can help us running our business. I love having a chat. I'm very nosy, very curious, and I'd love to ask questions. So if you want to be a guest, or if you've got some ideas for guests, let me know. And if you want me to help you with your LinkedIn, get in touch, because I want to give you a voice. Now, that could just be using LinkedIn, but I do other things as well. So I can help you with a podcast, a live show, and all kinds of other amazing things. So get in touch. My name is Ashley Leeds. I'm the 15-minute guy, and you can find me on LinkedIn.